Right here. I'm here to wrap up all the middle grade books that I wound up tackling in the month of May. For those that don't know, it was middle grade mayhem on the TBR and Beyond reading group, and there was like 7 or 10. I can actually tell you there were about 5 or 6 different prompts that I wound up like choosing books from. So I'm gonna focus on the middle grade books, and then the next wrap up you will see will all be all the adult and YA books that I wound up completing reading. But let's get into it. The first book that I wound up completing was a physical read, and it was Seekers of the Wild Realm by Alexandra Ott. This book was scheduled to come out in June, but I think it got pushed to July due to all the craziness. But I wound up really liking this book. I thought it had a really fun vibe. Thought it was a great balance between like the Keeper of the Lost City series, but also definitely like the Fablehaven and the Dragon Watch series. I really like the main character. I thought the world was super fun. I like the creatures were super fun. I like how there was the elements of a golden trio in this book. I really found it fun. I also thought that there was some elements of like questing and like a competition that made the book interesting to read. I thought it also handled like girl and boy roles in a very cool way that I really like. So I wound up giving this read 4 stars, and this book was for my premp that it had an animal on the cover. So that was one of the prompts. But yeah, I wound up really liking this, and I hope that this becomes a series. The next book that I wound up reading was for the prompt, a book that has less than 300 pages. This was not the book that I was going to read, but I realized that I've been trying to get rid of my older BEA books so I can give them to my kids whenever I'm able to see them. So I wound up picking up Zeus the Nighty, The Quest for the Golden Fleece by Crispin Boya. This is from National Geographic Kids. I got this at BEA last year. But it basically is a Greek mythology inspired novel, and it basically follows these animals that live in a pet shop in Atlanta, Georgia, and they're all named after Greek gods, and they wind up listening to this podcast that basically convinces them that they are Greek gods. So it's like an adventure of the quest for the Golden Fleece, but really like it's the quest for the Golden Fleece from Jason and the Argonauts. I found it super fun. I think that when there's art pictures in it, because mine's an ARC, I think will be even more fun. I think if your kids are a little bit younger for like Percy Jackson, I think that this might be a fun read to start with. There's 2 books out right now, and I just found it rather fun. I thought it was a fun story. I think that if your kids like animals, I think that they'd really enjoy it. I wound up giving this read 3 stars, but it was one that really made me smile, and I really read through it quickly. So if you're looking for kind of a quicker read, this might be a perfect choice. At the start of the month, I literally the first day of May, I did wind up finishing Blackbird Girls by Anne Blankman. I did talk about this in my April wrap up, but I just did want to mention here that I did want to finishing it in this month. This is a historical fiction novel that follows 2 girls in the aftermath of Chernobyl. You follow basically 3 point of views, but you mostly follow 2 point of views. And I just like this quote: "In the wreckage of Chernobyl, a friendship is born." I think that's very, very true. I really like this. I wound up giving this book 4.5, 5 stars. Really impressed, and it definitely makes me want to check more by Anne Blankman in the future. But this was not part of that reading prompt because I read it a little bit early. But I did wind up listening to the audiobook for this, but I did also get this book at ALI. The next book was one that I was really excited about. It was actually a re-listen for me, and it's Ice Wolf by Amy Kaufman. And this is a book that I have that features siblings. I have so many books that feature siblings, but this is the one that really caught my attention and the one that I read first. I just love this series. I love Amy Kaufman. This was a reread for me, and I really liked it. I really hope to get Scorched Dragon soon. I listened to the audiobook, and I was thoroughly impressed. I might actually try to get the audiobook when it's released. It's not quite out yet. But this follows 2 twins, Raina and Anders, and in this society you're either a Scorched Dragon or you're an Ice Wolf, but these 2 twins are opposites. One transforms into a Ice Dragon and one transforms into a Scorched Dragon, and they're kind of on the adventure to figure out what is going on. But yeah, this is a trilogy. I think book 3 is coming out in June, and I really wound up liking it. I was so happy that I wound up diving into it again, and I'm definitely excited to read Scorched Dragon soon. I'm going to put this back on my shelf because it's signed to me by Amy Kaufman. Yeah, I got this signed a couple years ago. The next book was one that I did put off, I'll be honest, and I'm really upset that I did, but it's A Tale of Magic by Chris Colfer. This is his newest series, but it's also a prequel series to the Land of Story series, and I wound up really, really liking this book. It basically follows Bristol Evergreen, and in her world where she lives, magic is not allowed. Magic is not allowed. So she winds up getting, and her dad's like a politician, and she winds up getting sucked in. She winds up getting into a lot of trouble, and she winds up getting sent to this school that is heavily involved in magic, and you basically follow the starting of a academy. But there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of characters that you have seen in the Land of Story series. I really, really wound up liking this book, and I wound up giving it 5 stars. I cannot wait for book 2 in this series, but it was definitely a read that really had me, really inspiring me to reread the Land of Story series because I love that series so much. But I love Chris Colfer's writing, and I'm definitely excited for book 3 when it comes out, book 2 when it comes out in October. But this one was definitely a 5-star read, and I love Chris Colfer's writing, but I would definitely recommend you read the Land of Stories series first before you read this to get all of the Easter eggs. And that was a fantasy book that I wound up reading. And the next book that I wound up picking up was Wings on Fire. Ooh, a bookmark. By Tuthi E. Sutherland. This was the book that I read that I was on the fence about just because it's such a long series. But I wound up really liking it. It basically follows these 5 young dragons who, I think it was, hold on, let me see if it will remind me. I think it's like 6 years later. This book takes like 6 years later after the prophecy was announced, and these 5 dragons were announced that they are going to be the people of the prophecy. There's a big war that's brewing, and it is believed that these dragons of this prophecy are the only people that can stop the war. So you follow 5 dragons, but your major point of view is Clay, and they basically live underneath a mountain, and they're not allowed to go anywhere or do anything until they can become the people of this prophecy. But things don't go according to plan, and they wind up getting sucked along on an adventure. I really did like this book. I thought the characters were super sweet. I thought that it had a lot of elements of found family. I wound up giving this read like 3.5, 4 stars. I felt like at the start of the book, I wasn't always clear which character was which because there are 5 dragons, and I felt like it could have been a little bit more explained who was who, a little bit more fleshed out. I really did like the world. I really did like the characters, and I'll definitely be reading more books in this series. I put them on hold at my library. But yeah, I was happy that I finally got around to it, and I'm no longer on the fence about this series, so that was really exciting. But yeah. And then the next book that I wound up reading was actually a graphic novel, and it is Babysitter's Club, Claudia and the Mean Janine, and this fulfilled the prompt, read a book with illustrations. I've been slowly reading these graphic novels. Graphic novels is not my chosen way to read books, but I have been getting into them a little bit more. But the reason I've been reading these is because I did get a book last year from BEA that is signed to me that I have a physical copy of. So I'm just trying to get up to that book so I can finally read that one. But I was a longtime Little Sisters fan as a kid, and I'm so excited. I also love the TV show. That was on when I was younger, but they're coming out with a new version on Netflix, and I really cannot wait to watch it. But this book tackles Claudia and her sister Janine. They are total opposites. They don't think that they have anything in common. But when something happens to their grandmother, they wind up making an unexpected connection, or they wind up seeing maybe they're not so different after all. And I wound up really liking it. It also takes place in the summer when the Babysitters Club were running like a camp. It also reminds me of my favorite Babysitters Club adaptation ever, the movie that they did, starring like all of my favorite like young teen stars, like Alyssa, like the girl from Alex Mack, and just a bunch of people in that movie, like Rachel Lee Cook. So that's like my favorite Babysitters Club adaptation. I always watch that like every single summer. But this one was super sweet. I really like that it focused on sisters. It also focused on relationship with grandparents, and I found it really, really adorable. So I wound up giving this read 3.5, 4 stars. And then the next book that I wound up reading was Shadow School Arithmancy by J.A. White. This was a book I think I got at It's either BEA or ALA. I can't remember which one. But this is a book that is a paranormal book. I've actually read a couple of paranormal books, like very, very close back to back to back. But this book follows a girl named Cordelia, and she winds up going to a new school after her dad winds up losing his job. Little does she know, she's going to a school that is surrounded by ghosts, and only she and one other person can see them. So she starts the book off learning how to basically send the ghosts back to, like, the hereafter or whatever. But it's not as easy as it seems, and she winds up getting herself caught up in a conspiracy. But she has 3 friends working with her to help save the day. I thought that this was another super fun read. It definitely had Prospero Redding vibes, like with the ghost and the haunted. Like, this wasn't a haunted house, but it has a ghost, and I just like the simplicity of the world. I like how easily it was explained. I really like the characters, and I was really impressed by it. I also love when books, I said this before, has like titles, like chapter titles. I think that just is really a fun way to captivate the audience. So I definitely will be checking out book 2 when it comes out, but this book definitely surprised me. I will admit that. I think it's been on my TBR for a while. But yeah, I wound up giving this read 4 stars, and I really, really liked it. One of my favorite middle grade books I read this month was The Unwanteds by Lisa McMann. And this book has a strong adventure theme, but it really can fit any of these props, honestly. But it's basically, for me, it reminds me of Divergent meets Harry Potter, but you basically follow these 2 twins. They live in Quill, and in Quill, creativity is illegal. You can't be creative, and when you're found to be a creative, you're basically labeled as an unwanted, and you're basically murdered. According to town standards, but unfortunately for those people, they're not murdered, but they're sent to a different location, and they're basically trained in the arts of magic. So Alex is set there. His twin brother Aaron stays in Quill and gets higher in the ranks of them, but a war is coming, and these 2 twins are on the opposite side of it. I love this book. I thought it was great. You guys know how I feel about twins. I thought this book was fantabulous. I really did not expect the twin dynamics to be what it was in this read, and I really have never seen a magic system that's so focused on the arts. As a theater teacher, I'm always looking for books that focus on the arts in such a creative way, and this definitely fulfilled it. I also loved it had elements of found family. I liked how it had a Dumbledore-like character. This book really, really surprised me, and I'm really excited to dive into more of this series this summer once I finish the Keeper of the Lost City series. But yeah, I was really, really I was really impressed by this book and gave this book 5 stars. And then the next book that I wound up completing was for read a book that starts with M or G. This is another one of the chosen reads for the TBR and Beyond reading group, and it is Ghost Squad by Claribel A. Ortega. I also did get this book at ALA. This is another ghost-inspired read, I'll say, and it basically follows Lucia and her best friend Sid, and Lucia's dad runs a haunted house. Again, very, very similar to the Prospero Redding series. But I thought that this world was a little bit easier to follow than Alexandra Bracken, and one that captured my attention a little bit more. The only struggle with this book is that at the start, the first 50 pages, there was a lot of plot lines going on that I felt like could have been a little bit simplistic, a little bit cut down so that it was a little bit easier to follow. But the last half of the book was very, very easy to follow, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the world building. I love the characters. I love the ghosts. I loved the characters that came to save the day. I love the magic system. I loved how she pulled it from her Dominican history. Really, really fun. Has one of the best taglines ever. Be prepared, respect the dead, always have a cat. So I wound up giving this book 4 stars, and I really hope that we get a companion book focusing on Sid in the future. And then the last book that I wound up finishing for this readathon, or this reading challenge, was a book from their pin post. They have a bunch of books that they recommended, and this was just one of them. But it's A Royal Guide to Monster Slaying by Kelly Armstrong. And again, another strong read. I really wound up liking this book. Again, this book can fit for so many different challenges, especially the siblings, because this book also features twins. You know how I feel about twins. But it basically follows this girl named Rowan, and she has a twin brother. And in this city, or this thing, the first person that was born is meant to be queen, and the second child that is born is meant to be a royal monster hunter. but when these two twins are ideal for the other person's job, drama, intrigue, and hilarity ensue. There's also a lot of cute creatures. Rowan is determined to be a royal monster slayer, and when something tragic happens, she kind of gets her wish in like an unexpected way. But it basically sets her out on a quest to solve all her problems. She gets a cast of creatures as her good luck charms, and it was just such a fun read. I flew through this book. I read it in like a day. I love Rowan's point of view. I love the characters that she met. Definitely a 4.5, 5-star read. Book 2 is coming out very, very soon, and I'm going to probably get the audiobook again because that's mostly how I listen to this book. But it was a thoroughly enjoyable read, and one that I will definitely read the sequel for. And I felt that this was a perfect mix between Keeper of the Lost Cities, but also the Dragon Watch series, one that has a very positive relationship with animals. They also stress that in the Dragon Watch series by Brandon Mull, and I really, really like that. So if I had to give you my highlight reads for this month, it would definitely be... I mean, they were all really, really good. I didn't read a book that I hated, but I would say Tale of Magic by Chris Colfer was definitely a highlight. The Unwanteds by Lisa McMahon was definitely a highlight. And A Royal Guide to Monster Slaying was another one. And also Ice Souls by Amy Kaufman. Those would be my top 4 picks out of these reads. Let me know if you read some middle grade books or what are some other books you read. And check out my other video to let you guys know what the other genres I tackled this month were. Stay safe and be well, guys. Bye.